Hello, and welcome back to the second half of Wednesday's show. This is Talking Sheffield, and my second guest tonight is Calvin Mark Payne, who's an independent local democracy candidate for the Nether Edge and Sharrow ward in May's local election. Welcome, Calvin.
Great to be here, Nigel. Welcome to Sheffield Live.
Thank you very much. The obvious first question is, why did you decide to stand as an independent candidate in the May local elections?
I think there's a very large gap at the moment between the people of the city and the political bosses of the city, the councillors in particular, and probably the system itself, and maybe even party politics, which is nothing new. It's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
Man in the street, talking about party politics, you probably won't get a lot of complimentary stuff back. But I think there are a number of issues, which we'll get onto, but a number of issues that have increased that separation in Sheffield, specifically over this last few months. We've seen that, I think, a situation getting worse, where people feel more disconnected than ever with the system and with the politicians that represent them.
Okay. And does the independent local democracy tag have a particular relevance?
Yes, it is the drive for what I and other people that are supporting me are doing. In that, in just this last year, we've seen from the Devonshire Street Rare and Racy block fiasco, where over 10,000 people signed a petition. Planning committee just threw that out. We've seen the tree campaign, which I'm very involved in, which we've been talking about, which has seen over 20,000 people sign a petition and get equally nowhere. And many other issues, buses, antisocial behaviour. There are a number of issues where people in very large numbers have been up in arms, have been protesting and offering alternative policies and solutions to the council, and getting nowhere. And I think often it's not maybe even to do with politics as such, but the process itself, that people are not being listened to. Their arguments are being thrown out, and I've been at council meetings where large petitions have been thrown out really quite rudely. It's not a question of a difference of opinion, but a not listening and being dismissive, and actually politicians and the political class of the city being quite aggressive to people who are bringing an alternative or an opposition to their policy.
Okay. You previously stood for election as a Green Party candidate, and why the change?
Well, I've been in the Green Party for several years until a few months ago. I would still broadly align a lot of things, I think, with people in the Green Party. I think, unfortunately, some of the issues I've been involved in, and with the tree campaign in particular, was the problem there with other people as well. I wasn't the only Green Party person. There was internal wranglings over this issue. Unfortunately, there was a feeling that this was a ready-made issue, and this was a fantastic issue, not just of ecology and the environment, but of democracy and accountability and money and power and all the things that should have been a natural fit. And unfortunately, the Green councillors didn't come on board with that campaign for several months.
Right.
They may well be now, that's another issue, but people have their own feelings about that, I think. And I think there was the dissatisfaction. There are several of us who have left. They form the basis of my campaign. So my campaign is very much with a green tinge. I am a green with a small g, and many of the people that supported me are as well. So that's the direction we're coming from. We just don't feel that, I think, even locally we were represented on a number of important issues, but this one big issue in particular.
Okay. What are the issues that you'll be campaigning on?
Well, the issues are what we are saying, what I am saying, fits in with all issues, really, because the great thing about what we're saying is that we're saying that people should have more of a say over what happens in their city, but also in their locality. And we want to have that link between people and the council. And we want somebody, and I put myself forward, to be the person in the middle who represents the council back to people and vice versa. So the issues are what people bring. I mean, I have issues that I'm involved with and that people know what my views are. But also, I think, I'm going to listen to what people's issues are, because what we're going to do what no one does, what no councillor has done. We're going to have public surgeries, if you like, public meetings where people come along, tell you what they think you should be raising, and then after each council meeting, each month, do the same again and get people to come and tell you what they think you did or didn't do or didn't say. So we're going to be led by people. I will say what I think and what issues are important to me, and in part of the ward that we're going to be discussing, the tree issue is a huge issue in parts of Nether Edge, but also in other parts of the city. But there are many other issues in that campaign. So I'm trying to, it's a very difficult thing to do, but I'm trying to say to people that this is not going to be elect someone to represent you disappear. This is going to be someone who's going to be wanting you to have that input as well. So the issues that I will lead with and that I will count as important and take forward as important will be things that people bring to me.
Okay, but clearly initially you have a campaign.
Yes.
You need to put yourself forward as standing for something.
Yes.
And the democracy tag is the main element that you're working with, getting people involved in their own democracy locally. But in terms of other issues that are particular to you, what would those be?
Well, as I said from my political history, people know what that is. I'm broadly, for a range of reasons, anti-austerity, anti-cuts, believe in public service, believe in the jobs and the services that people provide, and I'm opposed to privatisation and PFI. And this is, the democracy comes into that very much because we're seeing this is the main issue with the tree campaign at the moment, that the democracy is taken away when a huge PFI contract runs this enormous part of the city's services. So if we take it from what is a broadly left of centre perspective, and which was broadly aligned with the Green Party in the past, and to say and to bring the democracy angle into it, because I think that's something that's maybe not really understood when you talk about these things. People talk about money and things happening for money and for the wrong reasons, but when you privatise services, when you sell things off, you sell off the democratic process as well. So I'd like to think that I'd like to think that we could appeal to traditional Labour people because of the things I'm saying, because of those principles, and I believe in the people that can afford to, and the corporations that can afford to, paying for the things for the people that can't. So I have quite a broad, old-fashioned, probably old Labour type of perspective on that, with a lot of green stuff, a lot of environmental stuff too, but also the democracy angle of it. That this is the most important aspect. But people, obviously I do come in with my opinions. I think people know what they are, because I've been around in that ward for quite a while. I've been around the city for quite a while. I'm happy to answer what I think to people, but I'm also I wouldn't be saying it if I didn't believe that what I think is probably broadly in tune with what most people think. I'm not envisaging big differences between what my sympathies are and what most people's are. I think if I ask people to tell me, we will more or less agree mostly. But I'm taking that chance, and so I will tell anyone what I think and my perspective. But we're throwing it open, and it's never been done.
No, and indeed you'll be throwing it open in what is essentially a new ward, because Netheredge and Sharrow are taking on parts of the diminished central ward, as in Sharrow and Highfield, but also you have Netheredge in there, which is a traditional, largely Labour stronghold. Will the fact that it's a very new shape of a ward change your campaign issues at all?
Yeah, it brings extra issues in that probably aren't issues in the old Netheredge ward where I stood last year. Netheredge is known as a leafy ward. It isn't all of it by any means. All areas of Sheffield are mixed in some extent or other. What we're now bringing into the ward is along Avidour Road and London Road and Highfield and the estates heading in that direction, Lansdowne Estate, etc. It's bringing in more social issues, which actually I'm perfectly happy to talk about, and I probably prefer it to those issues as well. We're bringing in things like antisocial behaviour, but then in what we can say is probably the less affluent end of the new ward, obviously brings in issues like jobs, training, social housing, etc. So there's a real mix there, and there are certainly issues at the Sharrow end that are probably not issues in Netheredge, and maybe even vice versa. But I think when it comes to dissatisfaction with the people that are running the city, or the system that's running the city, I think the same thing can apply when somebody is relatively well off and relatively successful but doesn't like what's happening over trees, for example, with somebody whose struggles are probably more of a day-to-day and a different set of struggles, but they're coming up against the same frustration. So I think we can take that message to people on both ends of that ward.
Okay. Now, you be aware that Sharrow has quite a strong community forum and quite a strong community aspect to its life in that sense in the area. Do you hope to take advantage of some of those connections to what you might term the ordinary people?
Yeah, the great thing that I enjoyed about Never Edge last year is that there's a lot of community organisations and things already in place, and there also are in Sharrow, and I'm a member of Friends of Mount Pleasant Park, and I go to Sharrow Super Group. There's some great community groups that are linking together, and the old junior school in Sharrow is a fantastic resource, which has now turned into a great community centre with being used by a lot of organisations, and in some ways the things are already there. The structure of volunteers and community groups are in place, which is a dream for someone who wants to come and do the things I'm talking about. Because the people are there. The people are there doing some great things. I just feel that connection's missing, and that people possibly have a connection with some of these groups and the things we've referred to. But then I think the next stumbling block is their representation in the council and their links with the local government. So I'm inspired when I go to these things. I'm inspired by what people are already doing. They don't need any help from me or anybody else to do what they're already doing. The important thing is how we make that bridge. And what I do believe is that I'd love to see some of the community activists that we all know are out there. Getting into the council, what if I'm sure we all meet people all the time, and we think you would make a great councillor, because of the job you do with people and on an everyday basis. And that's and I'd like to encourage other people to do the same as well. And this isn't a last man standing type thing. This ordinary people living ordinary lives, helping and building their community, should be more interested in politics and should be more interested in becoming a councillor.
Okay. Now, the boundary changes that have created this relatively new ward that you'll be standing in this time round mean that this election will be an all-out election where every council seat is up for grabs. And every voter will be able to vote 3 different candidates in this particular
Very
election.
different candidates if they want.
Indeed. How do you think that will affect your campaign?
It'd be massively beneficial to our campaign. I don't think, quite probably we wouldn't be putting the platform that we're putting in a normal election where everyone has one vote. We know that people have a tradition of voting for certain parties. Nether Edge has gone different ways, has gone Labour, Lib Dems, and then nearly Green last time. So people in that end do. Other places in the new ward and other places in Sheffield tend to be more of a traditional Labour vote, for example. That is completely different. What happens when people have those 3 votes, and that is when the first Green councillor got elected in Sheffield in 2004, with exactly that, where people that were thinking about it and thinking about alternatives voted 2 for who would they normally vote for, whether that be Labour or anybody else, and 1 for something different, for someone different. And they ended up having a councillor who served for 11 or 12 years and was very well respected. So, and that representation for that party remained for all that time as well. So it can be a breakthrough. It can be an election, a once every 12-year election that does change something. And it's a lot easier to ask for one of people's 3 votes than to ask for their vote. And it certainly opens the opportunity, and it's the circumstances that I'm talking about fit the set of circumstances and the issues that are happening in that area at the moment, the all-out election and the city-wide issues as well. There's a bit of a perfect storm of people's dissatisfaction and the opportunity that May brings. I hope people are aware fully of what the all-out election means. A lot of people probably not until they get there. So we're trying to get that information out. 3 votes, any which way you want. Vote for 3 different parties, or for myself included. There's that opportunity. People can vote on personalities, on people and individuals, people that they know and regard, and maybe not pay so much attention to the party labels this time.
Just sort of slightly moving to a tangent on that, the Festival of Debate's on this year, and one of the events that they have in April that I'm contributing towards and partly organising is actually to look at this whole idea of all-out elections and whether or not there should be an opportunity to actually change the electoral shape of Sheffield City Council and move to a permanent solution of all-out elections. What would your view be on that?
Well, I first stood an election in London nearly 20 years ago, where all the elections are all-out elections, where they go in that cycle. You get elected for 4 years, and everyone's all out at the same time. And it is interesting, because, like you say, to change the shape of the council, because when a council's got a big majority, as Labour do in Sheffield now, you can't remove that council at a normal election because there aren't enough seats up for grabs. Once you get a majority past the 20-something, you can't change it, even if everybody in the city voted a certain way. And possibly that's wrong, because like I say, the opportunity comes along to make that change. Unless there's a very small majority in the council, you're not going to be able to make that change. This year you are, and possibly there's some continuity to that then the council that's elected is in for that period of time, whereas we're in this permanent annual cycle of elections.
Yes.
It's difficult. There are arguments both ways, I suppose. I mean, I also believe that people who are elected should be looking over the shoulder to election coming up as soon as possible a lot of the time, because to give someone that role and say we're not going to bother you for 4 years, I don't think it's a particularly healthy thing either. It is an interesting discussion, and I'd be interested to see who takes which position on that as well.
Yes.
Whether the people in the positions would look at it that way as well.
Well, I'm hoping to get a couple of interested parties along who are current politicos.
Yes.
So in that sense, we should have an interesting debate on that.
I remain open-minded on that.
Yeah. Okay. Thinking about the process of standing for election, describe for me briefly what that process involves. How do you become a candidate?
To become a council candidate is possibly the easiest thing anyone will ever do.
Right.
And I think people don't realise that. People do think it's more complicated. I've spoke to other people about standing. I'm still hopeful there will be other people standing on the same ticket as me. People think it's more complicated. They think it's scarier than it is. You can do it in half an hour. You get the forms, you get 10 people in your ward to sign that form to nominate you, and you are a candidate. You don't need to live in the ward that you seek to represent, although I do, and I think it's a good idea that people do, but you only have to live or work or have a business in Sheffield.
Right.
You have to have interest in the city, and you can stand in any ward you want, and you can knock on 10 doors and get those 10 signatures. Now, the great part, of course, then comes to run a credible campaign, and to get even a credible vote requires producing literature, posters, leaflets, etc. To win as an independent requires, first and foremost, an awful lot of work, but not a great deal of money. If people are put off by money, the campaign it's in the hundreds of pounds. It's not a fortune for a group of people to get together, or an interested individual to get together. And I think people are quite surprised if they look at how simple it is. And I am surprised. And even when I was standing for parties, I was always surprised that there weren't more independents, there weren't more single-issue campaigners. Because it's very, very easy in an area where there's a big issue and people are up in arms about it, to put somebody up, get those signatures, and get that protest vote. And if nothing else, makes the people that you're standing against listen to the fact that that issue is a live one. And it's very rare. And Sheffield doesn't have a tradition of it either.
Because, of course, in general elections, we hear the announcements of people losing deposits and this, that and the other. With local elections, there is no deposit as such, so there's no fee that you have to put down to be able to stand.
Just to stand costs you, you can spend virtually no time on it. You will certainly spend no money on it. If that's what someone wants to do, just to be a name on a ballot paper, it is that straightforward.
Right.
Obviously, as I say, the battle then comes after that. But in general elections, it's £500, and I think you need to get 12.5% of the vote, which is to stop frivolous candidates. Hopefully not considered that bad. But that's the £500 is to a lot of people a substantial amount of money. You're probably not going to do it to make your point, whereas in a council election there's nothing stopping people. And I'd be interested in people that agree with some of this stuff, to look at their councillors in their area, because you're only voting in your area. Forget the rest of the city. You're voting for your 3 councillors or not, and see what the alternatives are, because the parties are naming their candidates. The people will be aware of who those candidates are before the closing date. And if you're not happy, you're not satisfied, and you're a voter and you don't want to support any of those people, well, it's there to put yourself forward and start with your friends and family and see where you go.
And if people do want to get involved, if people want to be nominated and want to get involved in actually standing for council, when do the nominations close for the election, and when will campaigning proper begin? The
nominations close around 4 weeks before, so that'll be about a week into April, election on May 5th. And that's the closing date. So although everyone knows who candidates are, including the sitting councillors, the party nominations, myself and other people, no one's actually officially a candidate until those papers are all in and they're declared to be a candidate. So the election period itself is only that 4 weeks. Obviously, in reality, you're doing a lot before
campaigning starts considerably before.
If you're serious, you're already doing it. But still, there's time to do it. There's time still for people to think about it. It's easy for people to do, and I would say if you're not happy, you can always vote for yourself. Yeah. And voting for yourself is a great experience.
Excellent.
Everyone should have a chance to do that.
And as far as yourself's concerned, do you have much help on the campaigning front? Do you have much of a team behind you?
We do have a team. We do have a team that's been working hard already, and we fundraised, and we spent a lot of time on our leaflets and our literature, which is about to hit the street. I have a group of people. They're mainly, I do have a group of people who, as I say, have left the Green Party in the local area, and do have support from other people, especially around the tree campaign. That's where people know me, and that's where I know them, and so that is going to be the inspiration of what I do. That's the sort of passion and energy of what I've seen over the last few months from these people that have come into my campaign. And then we're a small group of people. We have an agent, we have an election campaign manager, we have various other people with positions. So, and people again may be surprised with local political parties. How few people actually they have on the ground. People think, Labour, Lib Dems and these parties, they think, well, I can't compete with that. But actually when you encounter the parties out canvassing, it's only 6-8 people. It's not, they're not more pounded. And so if you've got a small basis of support, we have a campaign team and a basis of support for delivering leaflets and knocking on doors and doing stalls that matches in that ward the other parties, the political parties.
Excellent. So if people want to get involved with you and want to either help your campaign, or if they are thinking about standing for themselves and want to talk to you about that,
I'd love to talk to anyone about it.
How do people get in touch with you?
Well, this day and age, they can. I am at Calvin Mark Payne on Twitter and Calvin Mark Payne on Facebook, and that's where we're mainly active at the moment. They can certainly contact me at Sheffield Live. They can hear me on Friday on Sheffield Live Radio
indeed.
at midday.
You do present.
So I do, and on Communities Live here. I'm very pleased to do so. So, yeah, social media is the way. Please follow, sign up, personal message me there, and I'll be more than happy to answer any of those questions. Answer questions anyone has, especially if they're in the ward, of course, but also if they want to be involved in something similar, because the great point about this is that we do try and build something, and I think some of the things that we've seen over the last year, some of the energy and passion, commitment of some of the campaigns that I've talked about, I don't want that to win, lose or draw with campaigns. You don't want it to dissipate. You want these people to, because there's such a good bunch of people who have come together and take the next stage, take the next step, and start to change some of the things that are wrong.
All right, smashing. One final question: win or lose, will you come back on the show after the election and talk to us about your actual experience of the campaign and how it all went, and if you win, obviously, what it's like to be a new councillor?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, I would be especially happy in those circumstances. But I would definitely come back, because it is an adventure for me. I don't know how it's going to go because I haven't really got a lot to go on about how it's going to go. So, like you say, all results possible, and I would love to come and talk about it.
Calvin, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time out. And now, just a brief comment on next week's show, because next week I have Gareth Roberts of Regather, who is a Sheffield trading cooperative, offering everything from events to brewing to green living, and followed in the second half by Harriet Samworth and Sarah Wilde talking about Sheffield's response to the refugee crisis in both Syria and Calais. I'm Nigel Slack. This has been Talking Sheffield. Thank you for joining me tonight. Good night.